Hi all, welcome back to Oops with C++ session 45. In previous session we have discussed about static data members, static member functions, constant data members and constant data members. Okay, so my advice is please watch those videos if you have not watched. If you have watched, then you can continue this video. I am sharing the links in the description. Please go through that. So in today's session, we are going to discuss about constant member functions of a class. How to write constant member functions, what is its behavior. Okay. So now let's have discussion about constant member functions of a class. So what exactly mean by constant? Constant means it is having a read-only property. So only you can read it and you can access it, but you cannot modify that. In the same manner, constant member functions will also behaves like an accessors, but it won't allow you to modify. So just like constant data members of a class, you can have constant member functions also inside a class. So constant member functions can only access invoking objects data members, but it cannot be modified. You can just make underline of this point. It can only access invoking objects data members, but it cannot be modified. Only read only property will be there for the invoking object inside the constant member functions. So invoker object of a constant member functions will be passed or treated as a constant object inside the function. So why we cannot modify invoking objects data members inside a constant member function? Because the constant invoking object will be treated as a constant object inside the function because it is passed as a constant object. Okay. So since we have read-only access to the invoking objects data members inside the constant member functions are called accessors because it is only used for accessors. Generally, when we are going to use the constant member functions is whenever you are trying to write a getters, it will be more helpful. Or if you want your method should not modify the invoking object's contents, then you can make your method as constant or your member function as constant. Okay, so when you are making your member function as constant, you can only access invoking objects data member, but you cannot going to modify it. Okay, now how to write the syntax? Is there tricky on this? It is as simple as writing a normal function. So write a normal member function declaration, but only thing is you have to provide the constant keyword after the argument list or at the end. So but whereas for static member functions, how we are writing? Static keyword was present before return type. Okay, but if you want to make your member function as a constant member function, don't write const keyword before return type. When you are writing const keyword before return type, then it will be treated like this function is going to return a constant value, but it cannot be treated as a constant member function. Okay, when you are writing declaration and definition separately, the declaration has to be present both. Const keyword has to be present both in declaration as well as definition also. Okay, don't forget this one. Don't for static data members it will be like a declaration side static keyword will be there, but definition side it won't be there. But for constant member functions, in both the places you have to give the const declaration. Right now, just recap the what we have observed from the syntax. That is constant while giving declaration and definition separately, const keyword has to be present both in declaration as well as in definition also. Inside constant member function, invoking object behaves as a constant object. So just make a note of this. I am repeatedly saying invoking object behaves as a constant object. Okay, so syntax why it will be behaved as a constant object? Because syntax of this pointer in constant member function is as below. How it is? Const class name star const this equals to address of invoking object. So means this invoking object, how it will be treated? It will be treated as constant object because this pointer is a constant pointer to a constant object, constant class name. So means wherever this pointer is pointing, you cannot say in the inside the method for any methods inside inside that method you cannot make this pointer to hold some other object also, object address, because it is a constant pointer. Now in constant member function, along with this constantness, one more constantness came, that is here the object is also constant, this pointer is also constant, and wherever it is pointing, that object memory is also constant. You cannot make it modifiable. Okay, so that's the reason we call it as accessor. This so constant members, we can call it as accessors. You have only read only property. So inside constant member functions, static data members can be accessed as well as can be modified, because static data members are not associated with this pointer. There, this is an interview question. You can get a question like, can I access static data members? Can I access and modify static data members inside the class? Inside the constant member functions. Yes, we can access as well as modify static data members inside the constant member function, because static data members are not associated with this pointer. They are not object specific, they are class specific. Okay, each class will all the objects are going to share the same static data members. Okay, but whereas non-static data members are object specific. For every object, their own copy of data members will be there. So that is the reason constant non-static data members can be accessed inside the constant member functions, but cannot be modified. So whereas static data members can be accessed as well as modified inside a constant member functions. Okay, now just have a program for this. Just quickly observe this. Yeah, so if you observe here, I have one class, my class. I have on my class, inside this I have a non-static data member and one static data member. Okay, so here I am assigning the value for this this arrow data, that is non-static data member. I am assigning inside the constructor, and I am writing one getter function, that is get data, and it is a constant. And see here, declaration and definition, in both the places I have the const keyword, and I am assigning some value for this static data member here, that is count equals to 1 2 3 4. Excuse me. Yeah, now inside this function, what I am doing, I am just returning the data. We'll come back to this commented parts. Okay, here I am just returning data, and in main I am creating an object 1 and passing 100, and this 100 is assigned to this arrow data, that is for here, and then obj1.getData. This is a simple way, right? I am just getting the assigned value. Just compile this and see whether it is compiling or not. Yes, it's compiled successfully. Execute this. It's working well and good. Okay, now go back. We will do some modifications here. I have told we cannot modify invoking objects constant, invoking objects data members inside the constant member function. So what I will do is I will try to modify it. Not only accessing, I am trying to modify it. Okay, let's see whether it will work or not now. It is error. So you can only access it, you cannot modify it. So non-static data members you cannot modify inside the constant member function. Okay, now what I can do is I have told one more point, that static data members can be accessed as well as can be modifiable inside the constant member functions, because this pointer is not associated with the static data members. Okay, now here I am accessing as well as I am modifying. So previously it was 1 2 3 4 and now I am changing it to 4 2s, right? Now let's compile and see whether it is working or not. Yes, it is working. We are getting that count equals to 4 2s and 100. Very good. Okay. Now let's one more point. Okay, this is fine. I am trying to comment it. Let's comment this one. So now what I'm doing is here I'm creating one more object here. You can expect such type of interview questions here. So my class temp, I have created a temporary object. What I'm doing is temp dot data equals to 2000. Is it allowed? Just pause the video for 5 seconds and think whether it is allowed or not. Right. So here, let's see, first compile and see whether it is allowed or not. After that, we will discuss whether it is, why it is allowed or why it is not allowed. Okay. It is allowed. I'm able to access it. Right. Fair enough. Why it is allowed? You might be asking, this is data is not a static data member, right? Why? But why I am able to access it and modify it? I have told a point that invoking object contents will be treated as a constant. Who is invoking this get data? That is obj1. So obj1's data will be constant. Okay, but whose data it is? It is temporary data, temp object, that is local objects data. This object is not invoking this constant function, right? So it is allowed. Okay, don't get confused. Only invoking objects data members will be treated as constant. It's not like if you are creating some object inside the class and if you are trying to modify that data member, it is allowed. Okay, but only invoking object will be treated as constant, because this pointer is pointing to the invoking object, not the objects which are created locally inside the function. Okay, so this is allowed. Now one more scenario. Say what I want is I have to do, what I'm doing is I am removing the let's comment this one. I am making this count as non-static. Okay, now this is a member of our object. Now what I want is I want to perform this operation. So now this count is also part of my object. So if I do this, will it allow? No, it will throw an error, right? Yeah, see, count equals to 222 because it is part of the invoking object now, and it will throw an error because I cannot modify the invoking object's context. That is treated as a constant. Now there will be a situations where I want to modify one or two members of the data members value inside the constant member functions also. So something like this, what I have to do there, because constant member functions, it won't allow you to modify any of the invoking object. And also I don't want the data member to be static, because if I make the data member as static, then all the objects will share that data member. I don't want the shareable property of my data member, right? Then how to do that? So for that, let's discuss about the next point, that is nothing but mutable data members. Okay, what is this mutable data members? If any data members of a class is prefixed with mutable keyword, then the data member can be accessed as well as can be modifiable inside the constant member functions also. If any data member, say for we have this, right, int count, right? Before that, for that int count, if we are prefixing that int data with the mutable keyword, then that can be modifiable as well as accessible inside the constant member functions. So you are saying to the compiler that I will be modifying it even in constant member functions also. Don't treat at any circumstances, don't treat this data member as constant. You allow the variable property of this, means you have to allow me to modify this variable wherever I am using. Okay, so you can just add this one and your program will work fine. What I will do is just add mutable keyword, see, it's working well and good. I'm getting the proper output, so no issues now. So mutable, what is mutable? Mutable keyword is used whenever any data member is prefixed with mutable, that data member can be accessed as well as modifiable inside the constant member function also. Okay, so for that reason we are using mutable keyword. So what are the points we have discussed till now? When constant members are declared inside the class, constant member functions it is, when constant member functions are declared inside the class and defined outside the class, then const keyword has to be present both in declaration and definition also, and const keyword has to be present after the arguments list, not before the return type. If you are writing the const keyword before return type, then the function won't be treated as constant, but it will be treated as the function is going to return a constant value, constant return type. Okay, so inside constant member functions we have read only option for the members of the invoking object. Because why it is having the read only property? Because inside constant member functions, invoking object will behave like a constant object or read only object, because in constant member functions this pointer will be treated as a constant pointer to a constant object. So that is the reason we cannot modify it. And so we can access static data members inside the constant member function, and we can also modify static data members inside the constant member functions. And also there will be situations where you want to modify even your non-static data members also inside a constant member function. During that time you can make your the data member as mutable. So mutable members of an object can be accessed as well as can be modifiable inside the constant member functions also. Okay, so this is for today. Hope you have understood. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe and share. Thank you.